There's something truly special about having your own space, a place where you can unwind, where everything is just as you left it, and where peace isn't just a luxury, it's a guarantee. For me, that space was my garage. It wasn't just some ordinary parking spot. It was my personal retreat, my sanctuary. It was where I kept my tools neatly arranged, worked on small projects in my spare time, and most importantly, just relaxed without anyone disturbing me. Everything had its place, and nothing ever interrupted the quiet tranquility of my afternoons, until Karen decided my garage was hers for the taking. Let me set the scene for you. Karen is the self-appointed queen of our neighborhood, holding the illustrious title of HOA president. If you're picturing a power-hungry tyrant who thrives on making people's lives miserable, then you've got the right idea. She's the type who'd show up at your door with a clipboard to inform you that your lawn was precisely 1 millimeter too long, or that your front door wasn't the exact shade of blue that the HOA guidelines approved. If there was a rule, no matter how insignificant, Karen would enforce it with the enthusiasm of a medieval knight defending a castle. And the worst part? She wasn't just enforcing the rules. Oh no, she genuinely believed she was above them. Karen had made a habit of bending the HOA regulations to her liking. She expected everyone to follow them to the letter, while she pranced around the neighborhood, doing whatever she pleased. She'd park in other people's spots as if they belonged to her, bossing everyone around like she was the mayor of a town no one voted for. But the day she parked her car in my garage, that was the day she crossed the line. I pulled into my driveway after a long day, looking forward to the usual peace and quiet of my garage, only to be met with an infuriating sight. Karen's car, parked dead center inside my space. My garage. This wasn't some accidental mix-up or a whoops. I thought this was a visitor spot kind of moment. No, Karen had made herself right at home in my sacred space. And this wasn't just any space. It was where I kept my bike, my tools, and most importantly, the one area of my house where I could escape from the chaos of the outside world. As I stood there, staring at the sheer audacity of her actions, a slow burn of anger started bubbling inside me. This wasn't just an inconsiderate mistake. It was a blatant display of entitlement, the kind of move Karen would pull, thinking she could get away with anything just because of her position in the HOA. Well, not today. I marched up to the car, fully prepared to knock on the window and demand an explanation. Maybe she'd have some excuse, though I couldn't imagine one good enough to justify this. But as I peered inside, I was hit with something I didn't expect. Karen was fast asleep. At first, I thought I was seeing things. Surely, she wasn't actually napping in my garage. That would be insane, even for her. But no, there she was, curled up in the driver's seat, completely knocked out. The engine was still running. The windows were rolled up, and she looked like she had drifted into a deep sleep. I could have knocked harder, called her name, woken her up the normal way, but something inside me snapped. This woman had tormented the neighborhood for months, dictating how everyone should live, acting like she was untouchable. And now, she was passed out in my garage like it was her personal lounge? Oh no, this wasn't going to end with a polite request for her to leave. No, Karen needed a lesson in respecting other people's spaces. That's when I had a brilliant idea, one that involved my two Rottweilers, Max and Diesel. Max was the older of the two, built like a tank with a permanent expression that said, "I dare you." Diesel, the younger one, had a playful side but was still massive enough to make people second-guess their decisions. Together, they were an intimidating duo, the kind of dogs that could send a shiver down anyone's spine. The best part? They were harmless to me, but as strangers? Well, let's just say they knew how to put on a good show. I let them out into the garage, and instantly their energy shifted. They weren't aggressive, but they knew something was up. They began pacing near the car, sniffing around, tails wagging, but with intensity that made it clear they weren't here for a cuddle session. It didn't take long for Karen to wake up. One moment, she was peacefully snoring away, and the next, her eyes shot open in pure panic. The first thing she saw wasn't the cozy interior of her car. It was Max and Diesel standing there, staring her down like two bouncers deciding whether or not she was on the VIP list. She screamed. Not just any scream. A full-blown, horror movie-worthy shriek that echoed through the garage. Her hands flailed as she tried to scoot away in her seat, only to realize she was still strapped in. In her frantic attempts to escape, she fumbled with the lock, but there was nowhere to go. The garage door was shut, and she was trapped. That's when things got even funnier. Amidst her panic movements, she suddenly started sneezing. Not just a small sneeze, full-blown, uncontrollable sneezing fits. Her face turned red, eyes watering as if she had been pepper sprayed. It took me a second to realize what was happening. Karen was allergic to dogs. I stood there, watching as the mighty HOA queen was reduced to a wheezing, sneezing mess, desperately trying to figure out how to escape her self-inflicted nightmare. Between sneezes, she gasped, "Please, let me out. I can't breathe." Oh, the irony. This was the same woman who once threatened to fine a neighbor for having a bird feeder slightly outside HOA guidelines, now begging for mercy in my garage. I took my time. After all, she had to learn. Finally, when I decided she had suffered enough, I casually walked to the garage door and opened it. Karen practically tumbled out, looking like she had just survived an apocalypse. Her hair was disheveled, her face blotchy from the sneezing, and she could barely look me in the eye. "I am sorry," she stammered between sniffles. "I shouldn't have parked in your garage." I nodded, arms crossed. "It's not just about the garage, Karen. It's about respect." She muttered something under her breath before scurrying away, probably swearing to never step foot near my property again. And let me tell you, she never did. From that day forward, Karen found a whole new appreciation for keeping her car where it belonged. Karma doesn't always come the way you expect, but sometimes it comes wrapped in dog fur and a whole lot of sneezing.